Hey everybody, it's Dia. Welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be talking about 5 things that you need to know before oil painting, and guys, these are important, so please listen up. Number 1, you need ventilation. This is not acrylic, this is not watercolor, charcoal, graphite. You need ventilation, like open up a window or two. You need to be in like an open space, not a cramped up room with no windows, because the fumes are toxic to you, your children, and your pets. So if you care about those things, please open up a window. And especially when you're using solvents like paint, thinner, turpentine, which are the same thing, but even if it's odorless, you need to crack open a window. And every time I get an odorless thing of turpentine or paint thinner, I still smell it and it stinks bad. Also, for whatever reason, if you're making your own pigments, which I mean, obviously, y'all are pros if you're making your own pigments. I buy mine at the store, but also it's the same thing, especially if you're working with things that have heavy metals and stuff. You can't be breathing in those type of particles. Number 2, safety. Safety is super important. If you've ever seen those Instagram videos where sometimes people are wearing gloves, yeah, they're oil painting, because pigments that have cadmium, which would be cadmium red, orange, or yellow, cobalt, which could be in blue or purple, and lead, which is usually in white, but I personally haven't seen like lead white. I don't even know if they make it anymore. I don't know other pigments that have it, but those are the pigments that I'm aware that have it. So you have to be super careful about getting those things on your hands, because then it absorbs, it gets into your body, and that's heavy metal. So we all know what heavy metals cause. And kind of safety kind of ties in with like ventilation, to make sure that you also have windows open and stuff like that. Now let's talk about paint thinner, which we're still on 2, which is safety. So let me show you what I keep my paint thinner in. Okay, so since I'm in my house, I actually don't use paint thinner just because I don't have anywhere to properly dispose of paint thinner. I just keep it in this glass bottle, which is what I was using in the studio. And as you can see, if it wants to focus, please don't embarrass me, camera. Please just focus. Here we go. Okay, so here's like the dirty paint, and this is like the clean paint thinner. So this is basically how you would contain it, in like a glass jar. And I will leave like the items that I have in the link down below if you guys do want to use paint thinner. But if you are painting, you don't have to use paint thinner. I just had to use it in my studio classes for art school. But if you're doing this at home, you don't have to use it. I also, to be honest, I wouldn't recommend using paint thinner in your house, especially if for your health, your kids' health, for your pet's health. This stuff is toxic. I don't even want to open it. And this is odorless. And not to mention, if you're using it in your home and then you wipe it off, and usually people have like rags or paper towels, you can't just throw it away in the trash. Yeah, that's right. You can't just throw it. It will literally combust, explode. Don't, please don't throw it away in your trash, because my professor literally told me in one of his classes someone mistakenly threw away like their paper towel that had like turpentine in it, and the trash can combusted. This is why we have metal trash cans in our art studio. If you have a metal trash can, go right ahead. And then there's like disposable, like a place where you can dispose things in your city. I don't know where those things are, because my art studio does it. So yeah. Another thing, that's also why some people wear masks, especially when they're dealing with paint thinner or oil paint, just the fumes. That's why some people wear masks. I personally don't wear a mask or gloves because maybe I just don't care about my health. And honestly, I think it's easier to paint without gloves. I'm not gonna lie, that's why I don't wear them. But as soon as I get any type of pigment on my hands, I'm panicking. I'm scared. I'm like, oh no, like cancer's coming for me. Okay, so let's do a recap of things that you don't do. Don't throw it in the trash, and don't pour it down the sink. I didn't mention that, but yeah, don't pour paint thinner, turpentine. Don't pour it down the sink. Okay, 3. Prep your canvas. Please prep your canvas. Okay, so first you could either spray it in the back with water, or like there's like little, I forgot, it's like little wooden pieces, and you stick them in the back of, like, they have like little corners within the canvas, and it like stretches it. Also, gesso. Gesso is important. 3, 4, 5, 6 layers of gesso, because oil paint will rot the canvas. So if you don't prep it correctly, it will rot. It might still rot, but you want to slow the process of it rotting, especially if you're trying to make archival art. And then I usually do a underpainting, and gesso essentially is acrylic with just a bunch of other additives. So when I'm doing my underpainting, I'm doing it with acrylic. So that's kind of like another thing of protection, if that counts. But yeah, I really prep, because when I use acrylic, I kind of like I definitely half-ass it, I'm not gonna lie. Even though most of my canvases come pre-primed or whatever, I always prime it again because it's they don't do a good job of priming it, I'm not gonna lie. It's all rough and grainy. Like, no. I get all the nooks and crannies out. Okay, number 4. Okay, oil paint has rules. This is not acrylic, this is not watercolor. See, acrylic, you just kind of just throw it on the canvas and call it a day, to be honest. But oil paint, you can't do that. If you don't follow the rules, it cracks. You can tell by all of the archival art that have cracks in them. They didn't follow the rule, although they are masters, but we won't get into that. But yeah, their art is cracked. I think it's kind of cool, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of like it, but if you don't want your paintings to crack, then you need to follow the rules. And this is the fat over lean rule. And personally, this is how I do it. Okay, so for example, turpentine, turpentine is lean. So you can mix oil paint and turpentine together and it's lean. And if you're doing sessions, that's what I would start off first. But if you're doing it at home like I am, we just take turpentine out the progress, and we just use paint straight out the tube, because paint straight out the tube is lean, kind of. Although there's some colors that are more fattier than others, but I kind of don't really worry about all that, because honestly, my professor didn't mention it, so I'm not going to mention it when I was learning how to oil paint. But basically, I use the paint straight out the tube, and I don't add any linseed oil. Linseed oil is fatty, so if you're trying to do this over a few days, I usually add linseed oil the next day or a few days after I'd done the first layer with just oil paint. And keep in mind, when you're using oil paint, you need to get a pretty rough brush, just because you're painting with super thick paint, but that has nothing in it, and especially if you're not using paint thinner, yeah, you're gonna be fighting with it a little bit. And yeah, so there's other oils that artists use, but generally a lot of artists use linseed oil. I personally have only used linseed oil. I've also used liquid, which speeds up your drying process, and I use this for glazing, but we're not talking about glazing. Glazing is like a whole another thing that I'm not going to get into, but if you're interested in glazing, this is what I use for glazing. If you ever see people on Instagram talking about that they're glazing, at least this is what my professor said, so this is what I use if I'm glazing. And number 5. Basically, number 5, these are like all the supplies that you need. Of course, you'll need oil paint. You'll need linseed oil. You don't need paint thinner, but if you want to use it, you can use it. Most professors, a lot of people will say that you need it. I personally don't think that you need it, because I don't use it that often unless I'm in my class or the studio, but I'm not. So all the recent paintings that you guys have seen, I didn't use it. For this one, for example, I didn't use it, and for a recent one that I recently did, I'll put it right here, I didn't use it, so that just kind of shows you really don't need to use it. I would also recommend not necessarily using soft brushes. I would use soft brushes if you're trying to get smooth blends, but you don't need to get smooth blends right off the bat, just because trying to use a soft brush and moving around thick paint is a horrendous process. Like, it's just gonna stick on the brush and not really get into the canvas like you want it to get into. That's why I personally use really rough brushes, and I'll show you some examples of brushes that I use. So these two here, they're pretty hard brushes. I don't know if y'all can tell. Yeah, these are pretty rough brushes. Like, they will really get in there. If I need to do some sort of detail, or I have like kind of intricate details that I need to do, I'm like, I have bigger brushes like this, but this is just like what I pulled. And then for my big soft brush, like, you don't want to start off painting with this with thick oil paint unless you add like turpentine or something like that. But trying to use this with oil paint straight out the tube, you're gonna be mad at yourself. That's all I'm gonna say. Also, having a palette knife is pretty useful just for like mixing it, but also you can use this as a tool as for putting paint on the canvas. Honestly, this is very useful. I love this so much. And here are some paint brands that I use. And you guys don't have to use these paint brands. These are just brands that I really like that I've been using. Oh, and here's some practice canvases that I think they're pretty fun to use. Like I have like little small ones. I really love canvas panels. They just, something about them, it's just so easy to paint on them. But if you guys have made it this far into the video, please comment this so that I know that you made it this far into the video. But thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe, and can't wait to see y'all in the next video. Peace.